Good evening, and thank you for joining us in a Tibetan Buddhist practice to begin the new year with meditation and prayers of compassion. On behalf of Her Eminence Jetsama Akan Lama, this prayer event is being sponsored by Kunzang Palyul Choling, or KPC Buddhist Temple, located in Poolesville, Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C. Our mission at KPC is to alleviate suffering through compassionate activity in the world. Like so many this year, we adapted to the circumstances of COVID-19 and have found that by providing a place of physical and virtual refuge for anyone who needs it, our activities have become vital to the well-being of so many. Take a look at some of what KPC has accomplished in 2020.
At Kunzang Palyul Choling, we're building a community of generosity. We offer weekly online teachings, daily online practices, a virtual temple with prayer and meditation resources, a 24-hour prayer vigil for all your prayer requests, a beautiful peace park with stupas and walking trails, statue gardens including a new Lady Liberty monument, and projects that work towards food security in our community at large. At KPC, we are working towards the happiness of all beings. Together, we are creating a more compassionate world.
We are grateful to everyone who has contributed to keeping this amazing activity going, and we look forward to continuing these efforts in 2021. If you would like to get involved with our projects, click the Connect with Us button in the virtual temple of Tara.org or leave a message on our Facebook page. If you would like to sponsor tonight's event or make an offering, please follow the link in the chat. Tibetans celebrate the New Year based on the lunar calendar during a festival called Losar, which occurs in February on the Gregorian calendar. For 21 years, KPC has held this event in the prayer room of the Maryland Temple. It is the perfect time to make wishing prayers and set intentions for the new year, with a generous heart to alleviate suffering, to help others in our communities and the world to create loving kindness and lasting peace. Now more than ever, the world needs our prayers. To make tonight easy to follow, the text will be shared on the screen and we'll give instructions throughout. A link to the practice is available in the chat to download if you prefer. Most of the prayers will be in English, with some chanting in Tibetan, and an online usher will help with any questions you may have. We also invite you to dedicate prayers to loved ones or situations in the chat. Now I'm going to turn it over to Gompo to give an overview of the practice.
Thank you, Kunla. And welcome everyone who's joined us tonight. We gather at the end of one year and the beginning of another, a transition that in itself is no more significant or special than any other two moments in time. This transition, though, becomes meaningful by the virtue of the thoughts and aspirations that we have about the past and the future. We recognize this year's New Year's Eve is weighed down by uncertainty and loss. The COVID-19 pandemic has challenged the notion that we can look to our present circumstances and anticipate the future. 2020 has been a challenge, even for Buddhists who know that constant change or impermanence is fundamental to making sense of one's life. Each of us probably knows someone, or perhaps more than one person, who died this year, possibly from complications due to COVID-19. So as Kunlun mentioned, each year on New Year's Eve, we try to offer the community a meditative practice that alleviates suffering, something that the community can join in and participate with us. This year we've chosen the Chenrezig Sur practice, which addresses loss with generosity. Chenrezig, or Avalokiteshvara, is the Buddha of ultimate compassion. Sur is the offering of smell or scent. In the Buddhist worldview, there are many kinds of sentient beings. Some of them survive by eating solid food, some through touch or psychological nutrition through the force of the mind, and some by consuming scent. So we offer sur, therefore, after someone has died, because we believe that their spirit survives on scents during their transition to the next life. In the sur practice, which we'll be doing tonight, the substances are things that we would recognize as food: white flour, butter, milk, yogurt, sugar, honey, molasses. These substances are combined into a dry dough that's burned over a fire or charcoal. The scent of the smoke that's from these burned offerings is what provides sustenance to beings during their transition to the next life. And in the sur practice, they're actually called to the offering by the sound of some hand cymbals that kind of are rung throughout the practice at specific times. The sur offering is made to the objects of refuge, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, from the Buddhist perspective, protectors and very high spiritual gods, all sentient beings, including beings in their transition to their next life, and those beings with whom we have karmic debts. So the sur then becomes an offering of generosity to all these beings and fulfills them in all realms. So the practice is in our booklet here for this evening. Looking at it, you'll notice, if you're not familiar, and we're hoping that we have people here who have maybe not been part of some of our activities in the past, but the practice is written, each line actually has three parts. The top line is the Tibetan script, because these are Tibetan practices. The middle line is a transliteration of what that Tibetan script sounds like. And then the bottom line is English, which we would recognize. So most of our practice will be on that bottom line, English. There are a couple prayers only that we're going to chant in Tibetan, including the first prayer, which is traditionally chanted in Tibetan. Now, just a heads up, when we get into the sur practice itself, you may hear some terms that you're unfamiliar with. And there are names of people and places that are actually in Sanskrit. So who knows Sanskrit? Not many of us here do. So it's kind of, don't be discouraged, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. It's kind of normal. We stumble a bit, and you may stumble a bit over those names and places. The main point, putting all that aside, the main point is to maintain an intention that through this generosity of the sur, you will be helping to counter the suffering of others. So that motivation is what matters the most, is the motivation that you hold while doing this, not that you can say the words. With that said, we will begin. I'll mention one other thing. Just for the full scope of the evening, we will chant this practice or read it. It'll take us about 20 minutes probably to complete it. Then we'll have somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes where we can spend in quiet contemplation, contemplating whatever is important to you. If you want to use a candle as a support for that contemplation, you can. We have candles here. If you have a candle at home and want to light it, you can do that. If you don't have a candle, you can visualize that or something meaningful to you, something that symbolizes light and darkness, or the transition that we are undergoing here. So after this quiet period of contemplation, I will use the striker to hit the singing bowl 3 times, and we'll know that that's midnight. And then at midnight, we will hear a message from Jetsam Akan Lamo, the spiritual director of our temple, the person who founded this temple and who connects us with a lineage of practice that has a remarkable history. Contact us if you'd like to hear about that. And then we will say three traditional prayers after that. And I can say something about that later. But the prayers we'll do refuge and then Bodhisattva and then dedication. People may be here of different faiths. Everybody, if you have a faith tradition, you look to that tradition to help you. You make aspirations in that tradition to be the best you can. And then you make sure that you've marked that you've done these activities through dedication. So that's the parallel concept, whether you're Buddhist or not, of what we'll be doing. So with that, we'll begin our practice on page 5 in the practice booklet. That's the 7-line prayer to Guru Rinpoche. And this prayer, we will do the middle line, the Tibetan, and we chant this 3 times. Organ yurgi nubjan sam pemage sardan pola yatsan chogi ngodrupne pemajane jesudrak kodukandro manbokor kyadgi jesudadruki Jinjila chi sheksuso Guru Pema Siddhihon. Repeating. Organ yurgi nubjan sam Pema ge sardan pola Yatsan chogi ngodrupne Pema jane jesudrak kodukandro manbokor gyadgi jesudak drupki jinjilab shirshek susol guru pema siddhihon. Organ yurgi nubjan sam Pemage sardan pola Yatsan chogi ngodrupne Pemajune jesudrak kodukandro manbokor Yedgi jesudadruki Jinjila chi sheksusol Guru Pema Siddhihon. We'll continue now on page 6 in English. And this prayer we'll repeat 3 times as well. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, I take refuge until attaining enlightenment. Through the merit of my generosity and other perfections, may I obtain enlightenment for the benefit of sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, I take refuge until attaining enlightenment. Through the merit of my generosity and other perfections, may I attain enlightenment for the benefit of sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, I take refuge until attaining enlightenment. Through the merit of generosity and other perfections, may I obtain enlightenment for the benefit of sentient beings. Continuing. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness in the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering in the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the sacred happiness devoid of suffering. And may they dwell in boundless equanimity, free from attachment to aversion. Repeating. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness in the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering in the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the sacred happiness devoid of suffering, and may they dwell in boundless equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. One more time. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness in the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering in the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the sacred happiness devoid of suffering, and may they dwell in boundless equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. And page 9, there's a short mantra. Om Subhava Sudha Sarva Dhamma Subhava Sudo Hom. Continuing on 10. From the state of emptiness, in an instant of complete recollection, I am the wisdom body of Jowo Karsarpani, standing with my right hand in the mudra, bestowing generosity. In front is immense ocean Buddha Vairocana. In his wisdom body, complete with pure lands, from the crown to the throat are the guests of veneration, the three jewels. Likewise, located between the heart and navel are the protectors, guests of noble qualities. Below the navel are the guests of compassion, sentient beings. At the lotus seat are the guests of obstruction, the karmic creditors. Light rays from the 6 syllables at the heart delight the fields of offering and purify the negativities and obscurations of the fields of generosity. All 3 of cyclic existence, without exception, turn into pure realms. And we'll take a moment and just repeat this mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, several times. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Home money, baby, 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 home money. No money, baby, home 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 money. Home money, baby, 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 home money. Money, baby, home 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 money. Money, baby, home 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 money, baby. Om Mani Padme Hum. Continuing page 12. Homage. Buddha nature completely pervades all sentient beings. Generate the vast and supreme bodhicitta. Without exception, these sentient beings have Buddha potential. There is no sentient being who is not the right vessel. Arise, arise, deities who have the 10 powers. Without delay, through the power of your great compassion, 3 jewels attend to the needs of sentient beings. To this place, arrayed with actual and visualized offerings, victorious ones with retinues, without exception, please come. Oceans of all kinds of high and low guests from the pure lands arrive and remain present in the sky. Om Ah Hung, 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 Om Ah Hung. The smoke is the offering goddess of sense pleasures, Zugdorjema, beautiful and attractive, with a melodious voice, sweet fragrance, and gentle touch. In her 2 hands, she holds a vase containing the elixir of gods, with 100 tastes, emanating unfathomable, billowing clouds of offerings. At her crown, visualize the Buddha Marchan Mag, who purifies the obscurations of downfalls and the dullness of the universe and its beings. His right hand in the wish-fulfilling mudra that eliminates poverty, manifesting an inexhaustible treasury of wealth of sensual objects. Nama sarva tata gata baye bishe muke be sarva tetam ungate saparana emangangana kam soha. 2 more times. Nama sarva tata gata baye bishe muke be sarva tetam ungate saparana emangangana kam soha. Nama sarva tata gata baye bishe muke be sarva tetam ungate saparana emangangana kam soha. Homage from Dharmakaya Samanta Bhadra down to the gracious root teacher, all the sacred masters of the wisdom mind, symbolic and oral lineages, without exception, to the deities of the 9 yanas, the 3, sutra, tantra, and mind, the accomplishment category, the 8 harukas, the deities of the outer and inner tantras, the deities of outer, inner, and outer mandala of the Kala chakra. To all the inconceivable, innumerable deities, I make this offering, restoring damage to the broken vows and samayas of awareness holder. Please grant me the supreme and common cities without any exception. Oma Hung, 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 Oma Hung. The nature of the outer vessel, the world, is the 5 female Buddhas. The inner continents, sentient beings, are the cities of Dakas and Dakinis. To those dwelling in the 24 holy places, the 32 abodes, the 8 charnel grounds, to glorious Vajra Varahi, master of the sky dwellers and the earth dwellers, to Vajra Yogini, the mother of the victorious ones, to Krodka Kali and Simham Kuka, Kura Kule, Marichi, Sri Devi, and Vasrudara, to the 8 auspicious goddesses, to Brikuti and Sabrari, to the great mother Prajma Paramita and others, to the goddess of the secret mantras, knowledge mantras, and Dharani mantras, I make this offering. Restore all impairments of my sacred commitments and accomplish the 4 activities without exception. May intense suffering at the time of my death not arise. Please be my guide and escort on the path. Oma Hung, 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 Oma Hung. To the 1,002 Buddhas of this fortunate aeon, led by conqueror Shakyamuni, to Buddha Gawapal, to the other Buddhas in the 10 directions, to Dripa Mikara, Vipsanyin, and the others, the Buddhas of the 3 times, the 2 supreme disciples, Sariputra and Madgalyayana, to Rahula and the others, the 4 resultant pairs of Shravaka Sangha, and to the 2 kinds of Pratikya Buddhas, and to the 16 great Arhats and their inconceivable retinue of Arhats, I make these offerings. By restoring the vows of individual liberation from all breakages and freeing myself from birth in the 3 lower realms and states that are not free, may I obtain the state of Arhat. Oma Hung, 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 Oma Hung. To the Sangha of the 8 Bodhisattva Mahasattvas, led by Noble Madrushri, to Vajgarbha, Akshya Mati, and the others, to the 16 Bodhisattvas of this fortunate aeon, to Dharmogata, Sadraparudita, and others, the unfathomable gatherings of Bodhisattvas, I make these offerings. By purifying all transgressions I have committed, without remainder, those taught in the 3 baskets of Bodhisattvas, may the Mahayana path be clear of all obstacles. Oma Hung, 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 Oma Hung. To the Mahakala and Sri Devi Dharma protectors, the mother, brother, and sister protectors with accomplishment through wisdom or karma, to the 75 glorious Mahakalas, to the male and female lineage and haughty ones, to the divas, nagas, local gods, and abode protectors, to all the Genyan of the continent of Jambubipa and in the land of snows, guardians of the good and virtuous, whose names and titles are not mentioned here, I make this offering. Protect the doctrine of the Buddha, glorify the 3 jewels, bring timely rain in the world, dispel disease, famine, war, and strife. Protect us, we yogis, from obstacles to accomplishing the Dharma, and be our patrons and providers of shelter. Oma Hung, Oma Hung, Oma Hung, Oma Hung, Oma Hung, Oma Hung, Oma Hung. Furthermore, to the assemblies of worldly gods, nagas, humans, brahmins, and rishis, who accomplish the words of to the yakshas, Jambala, to the co-emergent gods, the 5 patron gods, to the house gods, gods of the fields, and other gods who nurture good fortune, power, and creation, and to the gods of the 4 elements, mountains, and forests, I make these offerings. Assist us in increasing our goodness and all positive qualities, I pray. Oma Hung, Oma Hung, Oma Hung, Oma Hung, Oma Hung, Oma Hung, Oma Hung. To the king of the Gandharvas, the horse-headed one, and to the Gandharva Rabga, passionate with song and dance, to the Kinnaras in the cities, others who dwell in space, and all kinds of evil spirits, including karmic creditors and those attached to debts of flesh, to the 500 yakshinis, mothers and children, and to the assemblies of the 8,000 kinds of structures, I make this offering. Do not harm or possess us. Do not steal our good fortune or power. Abandon your grudges and cruelty. Om Ah Hung, 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 Om Ah Hung. In particular, to the 6 types of sentient beings and those on the 5 paths of being. To all these guests of compassion, subsumed under the 4 modes of birth. To the 2 classes of hungry ghosts who are poor and destitute. To those beings who died yesterday, this morning, or in past years, months, or days, having left behind the body of this life and not yet taken the body of the next life, wandering on a perilous path between these 2 existences, weak, without protection or refuge. To those with no help or supporting friends. To those who have no prior accumulations of merit. To those with little virtue to assist them. To those whose bodies have only 4 aggregates. To those who experience only suffering. To those tormented by terrifying, illusory appearances. To those beaten by cold, hunger, and thirst. To those with uncertain lifespans. To those who are floating like a feather in a gust of wind. And here we'll take a moment and you can think of people, if you'd like, and recite their names. Honey, Michael. We'll continue. And the ones in the intermediate state, without the freedom to go where they want to go, I make these offerings. May they encounter an abundance of friends and dwellings, wealth, food, and drink, and at rest at ease. Following this, may they instantly have a vision of noble Avalokiteshvara and the Bodhisattva Dripanamsa, recognize their existence in the bardo as bardo, and be able to seal the illusions. May they remember the Lama, the 3 jewels, the meditational deities, and the view that instantaneously purifies all negative karmic obscurations, and may they acquire mastery over their own awareness. May they be able to swiftly cross over to the extraordinary pure lands of Dewa Chen, Pema Od, and so forth. May all Buddhas be pleased with these offerings. May the sublime wishes of the oath-bound ones be fulfilled. May the desires of the 6 kinds of beings be satisfied. May karmic debts and debts of the flesh be repaid. All 3 realms are realms of purity. The 3 existences are guests of great compassion. May all encompassing nourishment without exception, through the strength and power of Dharata, ultimate reality, be enjoyed as the inexhaustible treasure of sense pleasures. Do not commit any negative actions. Engage in consummate virtue. Completely tame your own mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. Continuing page 33. May the world be at peace and have good harvests. May the food and livestock multiply. May the source of all happiness fulfill all imaginable wishes of beings. May the gods bring timely rain, and may there be an abundant harvest. May the king act in accordance with the Dharma. May goodness in the world also flourish. May the power of medicines together with the recitation of the secret mantra be realized. May the Dakinis, flesh eaters, and others have compassionate minds. May all those who are sick be quickly relieved from their illness. May all the disease of beings, without exception, never arise. And then we'll say this dedication prayer. By this merit, through attaining omniscience, may all negative forces that are doing wrong be defeated. And from the turbulent waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from this ocean of existence, may all beings be set free. And this prayer, concise aspiration, we actually will chant in the Tibetan. Emaho no so sonne na we ta ye da Yesu jua tu je chen Buddha yondo senpa tu chen tan nam la Sangye chan senpa me ko ge ko Neke nga sa pa tu me pa ye de wa chen she je wa shin kan de Dek shen de ne se pa gyu me ta Ke wa shin ge ka ma che pa ru Neru kyan ne nan de san do shu de ke da ge mo la ta pa di chan chu sang ge chan sen tam che ge ge pa ju pa jin je la tu su tayata pensa driya awa bodana yesu ha. I dedicate the merit to all motherly sentient beings of the 6 classes. I dedicate the merit to all motherly sentient beings of the 6 classes. I dedicate the merit to all motherly sentient beings of the 6 classes. So we have a time now, and we have about 10 minutes, which is a good amount of time for contemplation, I think. So just a reminder, if you have a candle or some object you would like as a way of having a focus for your contemplation and for making an offering, you can have that in front of you. If you have an altar in your home, you might have it on your altar. And we will take this time of quiet to review, to make aspirations, to offer prayers. And at midnight, I will kind of hit this singing bowl 3 times so we'll know that it's midnight. And then we will hear from Jetsama. She's recorded a short message for us. So settle in and enjoy this quiet time.
Happy New Year, everyone. I hope that you're staying safe and that you have what you need during this challenging time. I hope you are finding ways to give and help others during this time. The most important thing for us to focus on in the new year is generosity and bodhicitta. There are so many people in need right now. So if you have legs, you need to stand up. There are so many ways to do this. Personally, I want to give until it hurts. But guess what? It never hurts.
So I'm going to read and ask you to listen to a visualization support for the prayers that we'll say next. This is actually a verbatim of Jetsama's description of what visualization can go with saying these prayers that follow. So Jetsama said, first visualize the objects of refuge in front of oneself, meaning those Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that have the capability of crossing the ocean of suffering, who have the capability of crossing that ocean of cyclic existence and have done so. This would be Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, Lord Buddha Amitabha, Guru Rinpoche. And even if we don't know who they are, and there's no way we can know who they all are, we should think of them in front of us and really there, amassing there like banks of clouds. We should think of the practices that can lead us to enlightenment, the Dharma practices that are the method or the technology, the very intricate, the very exacting technology that can lead us to enlightenment. We should think about the primordial wisdom beings and the meditational deities that we ourselves practice in order to achieve realization. And even if we don't know who they are, we should simply think that they are there amassing in front of us like great clouds of blessing. We should visualize ourselves in front of them, and perhaps in a prayerful position, however you might conceive that to be, standing respectfully, kneeling, or even doing prostration if you're familiar with that concept. And we should think that on one side is our mother and on the other side is our father of this present life. We should think that our families, we should think that those that we have thought of as enemies, we should think about our friends and that they are all equal, standing next to us. And then we should think that standing with us are all the motherly sentient beings, all the beings that have been our kind mothers, and all beings with them. They're standing in front of these objects. We all are standing in front of these objects of refuge and gathering together all the positive activity they've ever done in the 3 times, past, present, and future. And she says, that means we're taking out a loan on all that we have ever done, all that we are doing now, and on all that we will do in the future. And Jetsama says, and believe me, we need that loan. So we should think that we are gathering together all of our virtue and merit in the 3 times and offering it to these objects of refuge. And to these objects of refuge, we are asking to be of benefit to sentient beings. We're asking to achieve the mind of enlightenment, to awaken to the degree that we can truly be of benefit to sentient beings. And we should think that we are taking a vow to help sentient beings and to empty the ocean of cyclic existence so that there will be no more suffering. After thinking of that, all of us have done this together. We're doing it together tonight. Then we should see the objects of refuge melt into light and dissolve into ourselves like water and milk mixing together, indistinguishable from one another, so that we become absolutely the same as and unified with the objects of refuge. And then we should meditate on that very carefully. So we'll move to page 41. And the first vow is the refuge vow. We will recite this 3 times. I take refuge in the Lama. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I take refuge in the Lama. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I take refuge in the Lama. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. And then the Bodhisattva vow, we'll recite 3 times as well. I dedicate myself to the liberation and salvation of all sentient beings. I offer my body, speech, and mind in order to accomplish the purpose of all sentient beings. I will return in whatever form necessary under extraordinary circumstances to end suffering. Let me be born in times unpredictable, in places unknown, until all sentient beings are liberated from the cycle of death and rebirth. Taking no thought for my comfort or safety, precious Lama, make of me a pure and perfect instrument by which the end of suffering and death in all forms might be realized. Let me achieve perfect enlightenment for the sake of all beings, and then by my hand and heart alone, may all beings achieve full enlightenment and perfect liberation. Repeating. I dedicate myself to the liberation and salvation of all sentient beings. I offer my body, speech, and mind in order to accomplish the purpose of all sentient beings. I will return in whatever form necessary under extraordinary circumstances to end suffering. Let me be born in times unpredictable, in places unknown, until all sentient beings are liberated from the cycle of death and rebirth. Taking no thought for my comfort or safety, precious Lama, make of me a pure and perfect instrument by which the end of suffering and death in all forms might be realized. Let me achieve perfect enlightenment for the sake of all beings, and then by my hand and heart alone, may all beings achieve full enlightenment and perfect liberation. Repeating. I dedicate myself to the liberation and salvation of all sentient beings. I offer my body, speech, and mind in order to accomplish the purpose of all sentient beings. I will return in whatever form necessary under extraordinary circumstances to end suffering. Let me be born in times unpredictable, in places unknown, until all sentient beings are liberated from the cycle of death and rebirth. Taking no thought for my comfort or safety, precious Lama, make of me a pure and perfect instrument by which the end of suffering and death in all forms might be realized. Let me achieve perfect liberation for the sake of all beings, and then by my hand and heart alone, may all beings achieve full enlightenment and perfect liberation. And finally, the dedication prayer on page 42. By this effort, may all sentient beings be free of suffering. May their minds be filled with the nectar of virtue. In this way, may all causes resulting in suffering be extinguished, and only the light of compassion shine throughout all realms. Happy New Year, everybody. And I'll give this back to Kunla.
On behalf of all of us at KPC Maryland, we thank you for joining us tonight as we begin the new year with compassion. We hope that the new year will see a time when we can reopen the Maryland prayer room to the public, and we can once again practice together in person. Until then, the temple grounds and Peace Park across the street are open to the public with masks and social distancing practices in place. We invite you to come circumambulate the many stupas, make offerings, and see Lady Liberty. We wish you all good health, long lives, and peace. Good night, and Happy New Year.